while his father dragged himself into the bushes that had left him quaking in fear of his belt. Fortunately, he had drunk himself into such a fury on one occasion that he had been good enough to stumble off a cliff, and that was the end of that. For a time, all had been peaceful. Then, when help should have and atone for the many sins of his father. She had prayed for that outcome every day. Instead, the case had become, in her view, a morbid hedonist who spent his time either slicing open dead bodies or tinkering with potions like a sorcerer, all while drinking himself sobbing. This was not, McLeod conceded, a basic impression. To her, silence was the greatest sin of all, anathema to virtue. Of course, she had still written to him at once when she had discovered his unexpected friendship with the Marquess of Zierder and Prince Edward, demanding he invite her to court, as if the years she had tormented him about every facet of his existence were nothing. He and Janot had made a sport out of finding ways to destroy her letters. Thinking of that made him smile for the first time in days. The trill of insects in the forest sent him back to sleep. After 2 more painful days, during which he thought he might die of the heat and boredom and confinement, the palanquin stopped. A bang on the roof shunted him from a doze. Out. The door stood open, letting in a glare of sunlight. McLeod got down blearily from the palanquin, straight into a puddle. Gathering, horrible. One of the chair carriers locked his cane after him. They hefted the palanquin onto their shoulders and turned back to the road. Hold on a moment, McLeod shouted after them. I said, hold, damn you, where am I to go? Laughter was his only reply. McLeod cursed, picked up his cane, and trudged towards the west gate of the city. By the time he reached it, the hem of his robe was soaked, and sweat dripped down his face. He had expected soldiers, but there was nobody in armor to be seen. The sun burned on the crown of his head as he entered the ancient capital of Psyche. Genura Castle was a behemoth. The white-walled complex bestowed a great hill in the middle of the city. A friend had told McLeod that the park and its gardens were made of seashells, and its saltwater moat sparkled with fish, their bodies clear as crystal. He walked past the bustling markets of what he assumed was Seabed Town, the outermost district of the city. Its stone-paved streets filled with oil paper umbrellas and bags and hats. This close to court, people wore cooler shades than they did in Cape Hassan, green and blue and silver, and their hair was waxed and wound into ostensive styles, adorned with sea glass ornaments, salt flowers, and cowrie shells. Robes here were slippery and lustrous, so when the wearer moved, it glistened in the sun. McLeod dimly remembered that it was the height of fashion in Genera to appear as if he had just emerged from the sea. Some courtiers even oiled their eyelashes. Necks were encircled by branching corn, or tiny plates of steel arranged to look like overlapping fish scales. Lips and cheeks sparkled with crushed pearl. Most citizens were forbidden to wear dancing pearls, as they were the symbol of the royal and god-chosen. But McLeod had heard that misshapen ones without a core were often powdered and sold to the wealthy. In the shade of a maple, 2 women battered a featherball to one another. The sun sparkled on the canals, where merchants and fishers unloaded their wares from graceful cedar boats. It was difficult to imagine that most of the city had burned down in the Great Sorrow 5 centuries ago. As McLeod walked, unease eclipsed his wonder. The chair carriers, damning them to the room of fire, had taken the letter from the governor, along with all his other possessions. That meant he could now be mistaken for an outsider, and he could hardly go up to Genura Castle to explain himself in this state. The sentinels would think him a cutthroat. Still, he had no other choice. People were catching on to his presence. Nervous looks came at him from all directions. Dr. Roos? The voice spoke in Lentic. McLeod turned. When he saw who had hailed him, he beamed. A fine-boned man in tortoise-shell eyeglasses was weaving his way through the crowd. His black hair, cut short, was grey at the temples. Dr. Moyaka, McLeod called, delighted. Oh, Izari, how marvellous to see you. Finally, some good fortune. Izari was a gifted surgeon McLeod had taught for a year in Odyssey. He and his daughter Karume had been among the first to sign up for anatomy lessons, and never in his life had McLeod seen 2 people so willing to learn. They had talked a great deal about cycling and medicine in exchange for his money. Meeting them had been a bright spot in his exile. Isara broke free of the throng, and they bowed to one another before embracing. Seeing that the outsider was with someone, people returned to their business. My friend, Isara said warmly, still lamented. I was just thinking of writing to you. What are you doing in Bermuda? Due to various disagreeable
I wonder if I should do
some respect from
this whole onion. I don't know.
The honoured governor of Cape Kisan decided to send me here to be placed on the house list. Whoever
And save a
brought you
piece.
should not have abandoned you in the street. Did you come by palanquin? Sadly,
Because this is small
those who
cabbage.
kill them are often mischief makers. Azari grins. Please, come to my house before someone wonders why you are here. I will let the honoured governor of the Northern know what happened. You are too kind. The boys followed Azari over a bridge into a much wider street that led straight
Hey
to
y'all,
the
I'm making dirty
of the Northern
cabbage.
Castle. Musicians played in pools of shade, while vendors touted fresh clams and seafood.
It's a recipe that I saw on
Never
TikTok.
thought to lay eyes upon the famous seasoned trees of Genoa. Their branches formed a natural pavilion over the street. At present, they wore dazzling yellow for the summer. Azari lived in a modest house near the silk market, which backed onto one of the many canals that latticed Genoa. He had been widowed for a decade, but his daughter had stayed with him so that they could pursue their passion for medicine together. Green flowers frothed over the exterior wall, and the garden was redolent of mugwort and purple-leaf mint and other herbs. It was Corinna who opened the door to them. A bobtail cat snaked around her ankles. Nicholas! Corinna smiled before bowing. She favoured the same eyeglasses as her father, but the sun had turned her skin to a deeper brown than his, and her hair, held back with a
Oh, that's so aggravating.
still black at the roots. Please, come in. What an unexpected dinner. Nicholas bowed in return. Please forgive me for disturbing you. This is unexpected for me too. We were your honored guests in Argentina. You are always welcome. He took one look at his travel-soiled clothes and chuckled. But he will need something else to wear. I trusted you. When they were inside, Azari sent his two servants to the well. Rest for a while, he told Nicholas. You may have the sun quake after that journey. I will go at once to the White River Castle and ask to speak to the honest governor. Then we can eat. Nicholas sighed with relief. I could do anything. When the servants had returned from the well and filled the tub, Nicholas divested himself of his garments and laved away the mud and snow. The cold water was fierce. Damned if he was ever travelling in a palanquin again. They could drag him back to Arusina. Reinvigorated, he donned the summer robe the servants had left in the guest room. A cup of tea steamed in the bathroom. He sat drinking it in the shade, watching boats glide past on the canal. After years of imprisonment, Arusima had never seemed farther away. Learned Dr. Reese? He stirred from a contented air. One of the servants had appeared in the balcony. The learned Dr. Moyata is back, he said. He requests your presence. Thank you. Downstairs, Azari awaited him. Nicholas. There was a hint of mischief in his smile, and spoke to the honoured governor. He has agreed to my request that you remain with Karume and myself while you are in the city. Oh, Azari. Perhaps it was the heat, or his exhaustion, but he did use all the important things with fears. Are you quite sure it is no trouble? Of course not. Azari ushered him into the next room. Come now, you must be finished. The servants had done what they could to keep the heat up. Every door had been opened, screens blocked sunlight, and bowls of ice waited on the table. Nicholas knelt with Karume and Izami, and they dined on marbled beef and salt-pickled vegetables and sweet fish and sea lettuce and little cups of toasted seaweed, each bursting with roe. While they ate, they spoke of what they had all been doing since they last met. It had been a long time since Nicholas had been allowed the pleasure of a conversation with like-minded people. Izari was still running his medical practice, which now offered both psychoanalysis and mental remedies for ailments. Karume, meanwhile, was working on a herbal concoction that brought on a deep sleep, allowing the surgeon to remove carnosities from the body without causing pain. I call it blossom sleep, she said. The final ingredient was a flower from the South Mountains. He trekked for days to find the flower in the spring, as I was up, with a proud smile on his face. Which sounds revolutionary, the face said, stunned. You could use it to study the interior of living bodies. Invention on, all we can do is calculating corpses. It's not fun. Wait, you must publish these findings. Think of how anatomy would change. I will, she said, with a wary smile. But there is one problem. The caves. Fire cloud. Fire cloud? A restricted substance. Alchemists make it from the bile of fire eaters, as I will explain. The bile is smuggled into the east by southern pirates, treated in some way, then stuffed into a ceramic orb with a dab of gunpowder. When the wick is lit, the orb explodes and releases a smoke as black and thick as tar. If the
It's in the sink.
It falls asleep for many days. The pirate then sell its body parts. An evil practice, Corona said.
I'm gonna rinse this cabbage.
What is that to do with blossom soup? If the authorities believe my creation might be used for similar means, they will stop my research. They may even close down our practice.
I'm not to sleep.
The place is speechless.
Getting on
It
the
is
floor.
very sad, as I always said, heavily. Tell us, Miss Blaze, are any Sycanese medical documents translated in Mentendon? Perhaps Kurume could publish her findings there.
Hold on.
The case side. Unless things have changed dramatically in the year by in a way, I doubt it. Pamphlets have passed in some circles, but they were not approved by the crown. But to them does not hold with heresy or with knowledge of politics. Kurume shook her head. As McCabe helped himself to some corn, a young man appeared in the doorway, peering in the heat. Let me talk to Ruth. He bowed, thanking. I come from the honest governor of the Mirror. McCabe braced himself. Much changed her mind about letting him stay here. He asks me to inform you, the servant said, that you will be expected at the Mirror Castle for an audience when it pleases the all-honored warlord. McCabe raised his eyebrows. The all-honored warlord wishes to see me. Is he actually? Yes. The servant bowed after the room. So you will be received at court, as our reluctant niece. Be ready. They say it is like a reef of season.
We're gonna rinse this cabbage. I'm making dirty cabbage if you just got here.
I can find you one, McKay said, but his brow knitted. I wonder why he wants to see me. The all-honored warlord likes to hear from the men who settled. Sometimes he will ask to hear a song or a story from your country, or he may wish to know what sort of work you are doing. As always said, it will be nothing to worry about, Miss Lady, truly. And until then, you are free, Verona pointed out, eyes twinkling. Let us show you our city while you are out of Orissa. You can visit the theater, speak about medicine, see the dragons in flight, anything you have wanted to do since you were over. The first one wept for sacrifice. Nothing better. Chapter 19. West. Loth followed the Marta Morosa through yet another passageway. Torchlight baked his eyes as he edged between the sweaty walls. Days after he had last heard from her, she had told him to meet her again in the darkly solar. Now they were in a warren of tunnels behind the walls, where a clever system of copper pipes conducted water from the hot springs to the bedchambers. At the end of the passage was a spiraling stair.
Hello. I'm making dirty cabbage. I'm about to cut up my sausage.
We are going to meet the one who plotted the murder.
I just finished cutting up and rinsing the cabbage.
I'm sorry, incidentally, she said, for making you dance with Priyanka. It was the only way to get you the message. Could she not have given it to me in the coach? He muttered. No. She was searched before she left the palace, and the coach driver was a spy, there to ensure she could not flee. No one is permitted to leave Cascada alone. She did not to detach the key from her
This
breast.
is turkey smoked sausage.
He coughed from the dust in the chamber beyond, where the only light stemmed from his torch. The furniture stank of sickness and decay, with a mordant edge of vinegar. The Don Marta lifted her veil and draped it over a chair. Lot followed her towards a four-poster bed, hardly breathing for fear, and held up his torch. A blindfolded figure sat in the bed. Lot made out waxen skin, charcoal lips, and chestnut hair that straggled to the collar of a crimson bedgown. Chains bound two emaciated arms. Red lines branched down them, following the tracing of his veins. What is this? Roth murmured. This is the killer. The Don Marta folded her arms. Her jaw was a steady line, her eyes bereft of emotion. Lord Attila, she said, I present you my Lord Father, Sigoso III of the House of the Tower, Flesh King of the Draconic Kingdom of the Sky, or what is left of him. Loth looked back at the man in disbelief. Even before the betrayal of Ascari, he had not seen King Sigoso, but in his portraits, he had always looked pale and handsome, with
I
cold,
should have got a green
with the
bell
amber
pepper
eyes
too.
of the Vitolda. Savan had invited him to court several times, but he had always preferred to send representatives. A flesh king rules as the puppet of a lion. A title Fayadel hopes to bestow on every ruler in the world. The Don Marta walked around the bed. Father has a rare form of the draconic plague. It allows Fayadel to commune with him somehow, to see and hear into the palace. Make this very moment. Peace. I put a sedative in his evening drink, she said. I cannot do it often, or Fayadel becomes suspicious. But it keeps the worm from breaking. Put a torch burning. At the sound of her voice, Sigoso stirred. I had no idea worms could do such a thing. Roth swallowed. Control the body. When Highwestern's that, the fire goes out and allows them to serve them, and give the progeny those rivals. Perhaps this is a similar kind of connection.
Alright, what
How
should I
long has he been
do?
like this? 2 years?
I'm gonna add just a little bit of seasoning to this sausage.
How did he become this? First, you must hear the truth, the Don Marta said. My father remembers a lot of her.
Just a little smidge.
Sigoso croaked. Rosa. Loth flinched at his voice. It was as if a knot of rattlesnakes were nestling in his throat. Where are you, daughter? The king asked very softly. Must I come and find you? Expressionless, the Don Marta turned to him and set about removing the blindfold. Though she wore velvet gloves that covered her to the elbow, Loth could not breathe while she was so close to her father, fearing Sigoso might bite through the velvet or make a grab for her face. When the blindfold came away, Sigoso bared his teeth. His eyes were no longer topaz, but grey all the way through, hollows of cold ash. I hope you slept well, father, the Don Marta said in English. I believe you have a power and a woman with a fire within.
I can't remember if he cooked his, the guy in the TikTok video, if he cooked his
flexing his arms in their chins.
sausage first, or if he cooked his ground beef first and then added the sausage, but I really think it was the sausage.
New ambassador from Greece. The Don Marta forced a smile. I wondered if you would care to tell him how Queen Rosalind died.
He used like a wok. I don't have a wok, so I want everything to fit in one pan.
Sizing up 2 morsels.
So this is what we gonna do. And he said he's like, don't preheat the oven, the stove, like let it cook with the heat warming up. I can't remember why he said that, but yeah.
Slut refused my hand, the hand of royalty.
I cut everything up already. I am gonna make some little jizzy mix. I don't want nobody judging me.
With the blood of the house of the thunder. Daughter, I am burning. With a glance at Locke, with a nod back to his nightstand, where he was inside a bowl of water. She soaked the cloth and set it on his brow. I had her gown made, Sigoso continued. A gown sad, and she got her veins padlocked like a Rosalia could never resist it. I had it placed a basilisk then and bought from a merchant prince, and she sent it from East to be hidden in her gardens. What did she do? Who is it? say something maybe with your cup. The cup of that. The position of cupbearer had been defined. The gown would have been parted in the city. The mistress of the robes at the time had been Lady Ardenna Glen, and she would never have hurt her feelings. I know, she basically said, that there was some of this probably left because Basil's memory was so strong, he had to laugh, even long years before its fight. At this, Lochbeen Basil, forgive my lord father, you don't want to be sons and it was king. I would say that he loved himself, but I think he is as much himself as he has ever been. His sisters, Locke took a step towards the bed. The nights of courage came back to the
We're gonna do some cornbread.
was taken.
Ooh, that's
Her
fine.
hand was held as if he let it be done. Damn you to the room of fire. She goes to the piano. She said, "This is paradise." The grin in his eyes twitched. That flex ignited inside.
Oh, I did get the honey one. Good.
Paradise. For the martyr snatched the cup from the lips. While there, drink this, it will ease the pain. She touched his lips. Never taking his face too long, because they drank what was on time. There's a tumbler in his head. Locke let the martyr usher him out. His mother, Lady Anne Smith, had been with the queen down for hours. He understood why neither she nor Sir Braun had ever been able to utter a word to him about the day Rosarian had been laced into that lovely gown. Why Lady Ardenna Glen, who had loved her like her own child, had never uttered a word again. Locke sank onto the steps. As he shook, he became aware of the Don Martyr behind him. Why didn't you listen to him? Why not just tell me? So that you could see and hear the truth, he said, and deliver it to Sir Brown. And so that he would believe it and not leave thinking that the mystery still lies in the sky. The Don Martyr circle was set behind his, so their heads were level. She placed a silk-wrapped bundle into her lap. Can you hear us? Roth asked her. No, please speak to me. She sounded tired. It seems I really not realize that I stopped her. When they think father was dying, the dragon feels. Her chin lifted. I have no doubt the work intends for me to replace him. His mannequin to be controlled. Does Firedale not take issue with your keeping the king like this, chained in a dark room? Firedale understands that my father does not look kingly in his present state, his body rotting even as it continues to draw breath. You don't want to sit dryly. But I must lead him from his rooms in order, so our Lord and Master can see into the palace whenever he desires, so he can issue orders to the Privy Council, so he can ensure we are not mounting a rebellion, so he can stop us calling for aid. If you killed your father, Firedale would know, Locke realized, and punish him. The last time I defied him, I had one of my ladies put on the Duke of Nuremberg. Her face tightened. I had to watch as his cockatrices pecked her to shreds. They were quiet and still for a time. Queen Rosarian died 14 years ago, Locke stated. Then, Sagoso did not do it under draconic control. Not all evil comes from worms. The Don Martyr turned to face him on the stair, so her back was against the wall. I do not remember a great deal about my father from my childhood, just his cold gaze, she murmured. When I was 16, my mother came to my bedchamber in the middle of the night. Their marriage had always been strained, but now she looked afraid and angry. She said we were going to join her brother, King Jantar in Rauka. We dressed as servants and stole through the palace. Of course, the guards stopped us, confined us both to our bedrooms, and forbade us from speaking. I have never cried so hard in my life. Mama bribed the guard to pass me a letter, telling me to remain strong. She touched the pendant at her throat, set with emeralds. A week later, Father came to inform me of her death. He told the court that she took her own life, shamed by her attempt to abandon the king. But in no other words, She would never have left me alone with him. I'm sorry, Locke said. Not as sorry as I am. Disgust tightened her face. The Scarlin does not deserve this, but my father does. He deserves to look as corrupt on the outside as he always was within. Sahar Tamargan and Rosarian Baratheon, both dead by the hand of the same king, all while Innis had considered him a friend and nurtured him. I wanted to tell Sabran the truth. I wanted to call for aid, for troops, but this palace is a danger. The Privy Council has fallen utterly to fire, too afraid to anger him. They have families in the city who would die if we stoked his wrath. Locke lifted his sleeve to his face to block the sweat. Sabran was my friend. Prince Obrecht was my betrothed for a long while, the Don Marta reminded him. I know they must think ill of me now. Guilt pricked at Locke. Forgive us, he murmured. We should not all have assumed you would never have known Fayadel was awake, or that we were under his wing. Tell me how Cascaro fell. Help me understand. The Don Marta breathed out through her nose. 2 years ago, there was a quake in the spindles, she said. Fayadel had awakened in a chamber in Mount Bruno, where he had gone to sleep after the grief of ages. We were on his doorstep, ripe for the season. The lavender fields burned first. Black smoke choked the evening
I
sky.
think it's 3:50.
She shook her head. It all happened so quickly. Wyverns had surrounded Cascaro before the city guards could reach the old defenses. Fayadel appeared for the first time in centuries. He said he would set us all afire if my father did not come to him to pay tribute. And did he? He sent a decoy at first, but Fayadel sensed the deception. He burned the man alive, and my father was forced to emerge.
I'm gonna melt some butter
Fayadel took him into the mountains. For the rest of that night,
to add.
Cascaro descended into chaos. People thought a second grief of ages had begun, which, in a way, it had. A terrible sadness darkened her eyes. Panic reigned. Thousands tried to flee, but the only way out is through the gate of Miunda, and the wyverns guarded it. The mouth closed. Father returned at dawn. The people saw that their king was alive and unharmed, and did not know what to do. He told them that they would be the first to witness the rise of the draconic world, if they obeyed. Behind the walls of this palace, Father ordered his privy council to announce our allegiance to the nameless one. They sent word to every nation, too craven to challenge him, too craven when he ordered our defenses be trodden down, too craven when he burned down the aviary and every bird left in it. I tried to organize a council to no avail. I could do no more without endangering my life. The rest of the country did not know the truth, Locke said. Cascaro became a forest that night. No one could get lie about it. Her head dropped back against the wall.
They still got to cook, so I'm gonna go ahead and add the ground beef.
Fayadel remained under Mount Bruno, regaining his strength. I watched as he used my father to turn my country into the base of his power. I watched him destroy the 6 virtues. I watched plague awaken and spread among my people, and my home became my prison. That was when Artemis Beck did exactly what he and Harley had warned him not to do. He took Marissa the Carver by the hand. She wore velvet glove.
He said don't season it until it started to like cook down.
You are the very embodiment of courage, he told her, and your friends in Birchdale have failed you. The Don Marta looked at their hands with a notch in her brow.
What was that?
Locke wondered when it was that she had last been touched.
It was crooked.
Tell me how I can help you, he said. Slowly, he placed her other hand over his. You can go back into the kitchen, she said, lifting her gaze to his, and lay your uncovered hands upon my father. It took him a moment to understand. You want me to? I feel it to myself. I will explain, she said. But if you do, I offer you a chance to escape Cascaro in return. You said it was a fortress. My mother knew one way out. She set her hand on the bundle in her lap. I want you to journey across the spindles and deliver this to Chasar Ispat, the Assyrian ambassador. You must entrust it only to him. The man who had raised the egg, and who had presented her to the court 8 years ago. The Don Marta unwrapped the silk. Inside was an iron box engraved with symbols. In the spring, a woman was captured near Peruta, trying to find a ship that could take her on to Lassi. The torturers had her for days, but she never stopped. When my father set eyes on the red cloak she had with her, Fayadel was in a rage. He ordered that she must spend her last hours in agony. Locke was not sure if he could stand to hear this. That night, I sought her out. The Don Marta skimmed her fingers over the box. I thought they had torn her tongue out at first, but when I gave her wine, she told me her name was John Dee. She told me that if I valued human life, I would get the objects she had been carrying to Chasar of Ishak. She paused. I killed John Dee myself. Told Fayadel she had died of her wounds. Better that than the gate. The box that had been taken from John Dee was locked. No one could open it, and eventually they lost interest. It was easy for me to steal it. I am sure that it is vital in our fight, and that Ambassador Ok Ishak will know more. She traced the patterns on its leg. He is most likely in Ruman about it. To reach the Azir and avoid the guarded borders, you must cross the spindles. The safest way to do that without harm from the draconic creatures that now live there is to become afflicted, so that when they smell you, they will not attack. She continued. John Dee swore the ambassador knows a cure for the plague. If you reach him in time, you may live to tell the tale. Locke understood then. You sent Prince Wilson to do this, he said, or tried. I did everything the same. I showed him my father and had him hear from his own lips how Rosarian died. And then I gave him the box. But Finch had been waiting for his opportunity to flee and to return to his daughter with the news of his place. She said, he assured me he had given himself the plague. When I realized he had not, I went after him with all his. He had abandoned the box in the secret tunnel that leads to the mountain. He clearly never meant to honor my request, but I can hardly blame him for thinking he could get back to Safar. Where is he now? Rob asked quietly. I found him not far from the end of the tunnel, he said. It was an amphitheater. Rob rested his brow against his clasped hands. Amphitheaters were vicious, draconic creatures without limbs. They had strong jaws and were said to shake their prey like pockets until they were too weak to run. I would have retrieved their remains, but I was attacked the moment I ventured too close. I said the necessary prayers. Thank you. Despite appearances, I am still faithful to the saint, and he leads us now, Lord Arthur. The Don Marta placed a hand on his forearm. You do as I ask. He swallowed. What of Lord Kitson? He can remain here, and I will watch over him. Or he can go with you, but he must be afflicted too. Even a knight of fellowship would not expect it to do this for him. He had already done too much. Will Fayadel see through me? Love asked. No. You will have the unusual kind of play.
Tomato case
I have
is next.
tasted the feeling. He elected not to ask how. Surely there are others in the palace who are loyal to the same, he said. Why not send one of your own servants? I trust only Priesta, and her disappearance would raise alarm. I would go myself, but I cannot leave my people without saying the Matilda. Even if I am powerless to save them, I must stay and do what I can to undermine Fayadel. He had misjudged the Don Marta Marissa. She was a true woman of virtue, imprisoned in the shell of a home she must once have loved. It is too late for me, my lord, she said, but not for virtue. What has happened here in Isfahan must not be allowed to happen elsewhere. Locke looked away from those fire-opal eyes to the patron brooch on his doublet. 2 hands joined in affinity, the self-same twine of fingers that graced the love knot.
I'm adding this
It's
next,
a night of fellowship for him. Locke
but I
knew
gotta
what
let
she
the
would do.
meat cook down some
If you
more.
consent, the Don Marta said, I will take you back to the flesh king, and you will lay your hands on him. Then I I will show you the way out of the skyline, she wrote.
Oven is ready.
If you refuse, I advise you to prepare yourself for a long life in Cascado, wrote Arthur Beck.
Ooh, I
Chapter
don't know if I
20.
should move one of the
East.
shelves.
While the other sea guardians celebrated the end of the trials in the banquet hall,
I'm just gonna
Tane lay exhausted in her quarters.
play it safe.
She had not emerged since her fight with Teresa. A surgeon had cleaned and stitched her shoulder, but moving drained her, and the throb was ceaseless. Tomorrow, she would find out if she was to ride. She gnawed the nail on her little finger until she tasted blood. If only for something less painful to do with her hands, she found her copy of Recollections of the Great Sorrow. The book had been a gift from one of her teachers for her 15th birthday. It had been some time since she had opened it, but its illustrations would distract her. Close to the 12th hour, when the song of the tree crickets was swelling outside, she was still awake, reading. One image portrayed a Sycamore woman with the red sickness. Her hands and eyes were crimson. On another page were the fire breathers. Their bat wings had frightened Tane when she was 15, and they still gave her a chill. The next image showed the people of Cape Hissan standing on the coast, watching a great battle. Dragons twisted and thrashed among the waves. Their jaws snapped at the demons as they rained fire upon Psyche. The final image showed the comet that had come on the last night of the Great Sorrow. Quiriki's lantern, weeping meteors into the sea. The winged demons fled from it, while the dragons of Psyche rose from the waves, painted in coin-bright silvers and blues. A knock interrupted her reflections. Tane shifted painfully to her feet. When she slid open the door, she found Onren, clad in a dark green robe, hair bedecked with salt flowers. She was holding a tray. "I brought supper," she said. Tane stood aside. "Come in." She returned to her bedding. Her candles had burned low, stretching every shadow. Onren set the tray down, revealing a small feast. Tender cuts of sea bream, bean curd rolled in roe, and salt-pickled kelp in a fragrant broth, as well as a jar of spiced wine and a cup. "The honoured sea general let us taste his famous sea-aged wine," Onren said with a brief smile. "I would have saved you some, but it ran out almost as quickly as it arrived. This is a touch less special," she poured from the jar, "but it might dampen your pain." "Thank you," Tane said. "It was kind of you to think of me, but I never had a taste for wine. You have it." "The trials are over, Tane. You can let go." "But I suppose I could use it." Onren knelt on the mats. "We missed you at the banquet hall." "I was tired." "I thought you might say that. Not to insult you, but you look as if you haven't slept in years. And you've earned a rest." She picked up the cup. "You did well against Teresa. Perhaps the bastards finally realized that he is not so high above the peasants he despises." "We are not peasants now," Tane studied her. "You look worried." "I think I lost the chance to ride today. Kankuru fights as well as he." She sipped the wine. Well, so she had fought Kankuru. Tana had been taken to the surgeon before she could see the other trials. "You excelled on all the other days," Tana reminded her. "The honored sea general would judge us fairly." "How do you know? He is a rider." "Teresa will be a rider tomorrow, yet he has spent years picking on those of us who came from peasant stock. I heard he beat a servant once for not bowing low enough. Either of us would have been exiled from the houses of learning for behaving that way, but blood still holds power. We do not know he will be a rider just because of that. I wager you all I own that he will." Silence fell. Tane picked at the bean pad. "I was scolded once, when I was 16, for gambling in the city," Onan said. "Because it was disreputable. I was barred from lessons and told I would have to earn back my place in the East House. I was scrubbing the outhouses for the rest of the season. Meanwhile, Toruso can almost murder a servant and have a sword in his hand a few days later. Our learned teachers had their reasons. They understand the true meaning of justice. Their reason was that he is the grandson of a rider and I am not. And that will be their reason tomorrow if I am cast off in favor of him. That will not be the reason." Tane bit out. It had leapt from her tongue before she could catch it, like a slippery fish eluding her grasp. Onren raised her eyebrows. The silence hung, an unstruck bell, as Tane wrestled with
I don't want to
herself.
be too much.
Come, Tane, speak your mind. Onren raised a cautious smile. We are friends, after all. It was too late now to take it back. The trials, the outsider, her exhaustion and guilt, all of it came together violently like bubbles in boiling water, and Tane could no longer hold it in. You seem to think that if you are not made a rider tomorrow, it will be through no fault of yours, she heard herself say. I have worked every day and night during our time here. You, in the meantime, have shown no respect. You arrive late to your trials, in front of the Medushi. You spend nights in taverns when you ought to be practicing, then wonder why you fight poorly against your opponent. Perhaps that will be the reason you do not become a rider. Onran was no longer smiling. So, she said curtly, you think I don't deserve it? Because I went to the tavern, she paused. Or is it because I went to the tavern and still outperformed you in the night trial? Tane stiffened. Your eyes were bloodshot that morning. They still are. You stayed up all night practicing. Of course I did. And you resent me because I didn't. Onren shook her head. Balance is necessary in all things, Tane. It does not equate to disrespect. This position is the chance of a lifetime and not to be squandered. I know that, Tane said, her tongue clipped. I only hope that you do, too. At this, Onren smiled thinly, but Tane glimpsed the hurt in her eyes. Well, she said, rising, in that case, I had better leave you. I have no wish to drag you down with me. As quickly as the anger had brimmed inside Tane, it cooled. She sat very still, her hands pressed on the bedding, trying to swallow the tang of shame. Finally, she rose and bowed. I apologize, Honorable Onren, she murmured. I should not have said any of that. It was inexcusable. After a pause, Onren softened. Forgive him. Truly, she sighed. I have been worried about you. Tane kept her gaze down. You have always worked hard, but throughout these trials, it seems to me as if you have been punishing yourself, Tane. Why? When she spoke like that, it was like having Susa again, a kind face and an open mind. Just for a moment, Tane was tempted to tell Onren everything. Perhaps she would understand. No, she said at last. I have only been afraid and tired. She sank back onto the bedding. I will be better tomorrow, when I know my fate. Onren laughed at her. Oh, Tane, you make it sound as if the jailhouse is the alternative. Tane flinched, but managed to smile. I will leave you. We both need rest. Onren drained the cup. Good night, Tane. Good night. As soon as Onren was gone, Tane quenched the oil and crawled under her bedding. Exhaustion and pain engulfed her at last, and she plunged into a dreamless sleep. When she woke, the light was golden. For a moment, she could not understand why the room was so bright. It seemed as if it had been dark for an eternity. She slid open the window. The sun gleamed on the rooftops of Ganura, even as the rain kept sheeting. A sun shower. A good omen. The servants would come soon with her new uniform. If the dragon on the back of the surcoat was silver, she would remain a sea guardian and serve as a leader in the navy. If it was gold, she was God-chosen. She paced the room and lit the incense in the shrine for one last prayer. She asked forgiveness for her impoliteness towards Onren, and again for what she had done on the night before the ceremony. If the great Quiriki would only absolve her, she would prove her devotion for the rest of her life. The servants came as afternoon ended. Tane waited, eyes closed, before she turned to face them. The tunic was lotus, blue as sapphires, and on the back of the circlet was the dragon emblem, embroidered in gold thread. Her new attendant skinned her hair into a military style. The scar on her cheek looked more prominent, and her shoulder ached, but her eyes were bright as fresh ink. As the sun took its leave, she emerged from her palanquin and stepped onto the pale sand of Ganura Bay. The choosing always took place at the end of the day, for her old life ended here. She wore new leather boots with a thick heel, the better to grip the stirrups of a saddle. A night rainbow burned against the smoky purple of the sky, daubed across the horizon in intensities of red. People were gathering on the cliffs to stare at this peculiar sign from the great Quiriki, and to watch the 12 new dragon riders walk towards the water. Teresa was among them. So were all of the other relatives of dragon riders. Tane fell into step beside Onren, who smiled at her. She had earned a place in Clan Medushi.
I just added
The last time Tane had been
Worcestershire.
on the beach, the stranger had stepped from the dark like a curse. Yet the tides within her, which had pushed her towards this day from the cradle, was strangely calm and still. 10 Sycamese dragons waited in the sea, lithe and beautiful. The sun and the rainbow lit the waves that lapped against their bodies. The 2 Luckestream warriors, it seemed, had yet to arrive. When he was called, Kanpuru bowed to the sea general, who lifted a string of dancing pearls around his neck. He handed Kanpuru a helm and a padded saddle. Next, the sea general bestowed on him a mask to keep the elements off his face, and a sword quenched with salt water, its scabbard inlaid with mother of pearl, made by the finest bladesmith in Psyche. Kanpuru passed the cords of the helm around his neck, then hefted the saddle under his arm and strode into the water. Once he was up to his waist, he held out his right hand, palm turned upwards. A blue-grey dragon extended her neck and considered him with eyes like full moons. When she dipped her head farther, Kanpuru hooked his fingers into her mane and clambered onto her, mindful of her spines. No sooner were he and the saddle in place than his dragon let out a haunting call and plunged into the sea, drenching everyone on the beach. Onren approached the shore next, cheeks full of her smile. She had only held out her hand for a moment before the largest of the dragons, a hulking Sycamese with a black mane, his scales like beaten silver, came gliding towards the beach. Onren tensed at first, but once she had made contact, she relaxed and climbed his neck like a ladder. The Honorable Medushi Tane, the sea general called. Step forward. Onren lowered her mask over her face. The dragon lowered his head and swam away. Tane bowed to the sea general and let him lock the pearls at the base of her neck, the sign that she was God-chosen. She took the helmet and the saddle, and finally the sword in its scabbard. It already felt like part of her arm. She fastened it into her sash and waded into the sea. As warm salt water swirled around her calves, her breath came short. She reached out a hand, head down, eyes shut. Her hand was steady, but the rest of her was quaking. Cold scale brushed her fingers. She dared not look. She must. When she did, 2 eyes as bright as fireworks stared back from the face of a Luckestream dragon. Chapter 21. West. Loth left his rooms in the Palace of Salvation for the last time in the dead of night. The draconic plague was inside him. One touch to the brow of the Flesh King, a prickle in his hand, and an hourglass had turned over in his mind. Soon enough, the fine grains of his sanity would begin to course between his fingers. Slung over his shoulder was a leather sack, filled with supplies for the journey through the mountains. His baseguard and sword were at his side, concealed beneath a winter cloak. Kit followed him down the winding stairs. I do hope this is a good idea, Arteloff, he said. It is the opposite of a good idea. Piracy was the better option, undeniably. They were entering the bowels of Cascara. The Don Marta Marosa had told him how to access a hidden stair from the privy sanctuary, which tapered as they descended. Loth dried the cold sweat from his brow.
That's okay, we're gonna add a little cayenne to it.
He had to stay behind, but his friend had insisted on coming with him. An eternity passed before their boots hit the flat ground. Loth held his torch up. The Don Marta Marosa was waiting at the foot of the stair, her face cast into a shadow by her hood. She stood before a great crack in the wall. What is this place? Loth asked. A forgotten escape route for use in sieges, I suppose, she said. It was how Mama and I meant to flee. Why did you not use it to get word out? I tried. She lowered her hood. Lord Kitson, are you now afflicted? Kit bowed. Yes, Radiance. I believe I am sufficiently plague-ridden. Good. Her gaze snapped back to Loth. I sent one of my ladies. That was before I knew how many draconic creatures were in the mountains. The inference was clear. The Don Marta reached behind her and held out matching wooden staffs, each capped with a hook. Ice staves. They will help you find your balance. They took them. To Loth, she handed another sack, heavy with the iron box. I bid you not abandon this task I have set for you, Lord
I
Bartolo.
want to add just
Her
a
eyes were jewel-like
smidge
in the
more.
fire. I trust that you will do this for me and for virtue. With these words, she stood aside. We will send help.
Oh, and we had ground beef
Keep
in
your
the
father
refrigerator.
alive for as long as you
Shit, I
can.
just bought some.
If he dies, hide yourself from Fire. When this task is done, we will tell the sovereigns of Virtudum what has happened here. You will not die alone in this place. At last, the Don Marta Morosa smiled, just a little, as if she had forgotten how. You have a kind heart, Lord Arteloth, she said. If you do get back to Innis, give Sabran and Obrecht my regards. I will. He bowed to her. Goodbye, Your Radiance. Goodbye, my lord. They gazes held for a song of heartbeats. Loth dipped his head once more and stepped into the passage. May the night of courage bring you cheer in these dark hours, Kit said to Marissa. And you, Lord, Kit said. Her footsteps echoed as she left. Loth felt a sudden regret that they could not take her with them. Marissa Vitalda, Don Marta of Iscarlin, imprisoned in her tower. The passageway was unspeakably dark. A breeze drew Loth on like a beckoning hand. He snared his boot on the uneven ground at once, almost robbing himself of an eye with his torch. They were surrounded by the glimmer of volcanic glass and the porous swell of pumice. The glass mirrored the light of his torch, casting 100 different reflections. They walked for what seemed like hours, sometimes turning a corner, but otherwise moving in a straight line. Their staves tapped out a rhythm. Once Kit coughed, and Loth tensed. Hush, he said. I would rather not wake whatever dwells down here. A man must cough when need be, and nothing dwells down here. Tell me these walls don't look as if a basilisk carved them. Oh, stop being such a doom singer. Think of this as another adventure. I never wanted an adventure, Loth said warily. Not even one. At this moment, I want to be at Briar House with a cup of mulled wine, preparing to walk my queen to the altar. And I should like to be waking up beside Kate Withy, but alas, we cannot have everything. Loth smiled. I'm glad you're here, Kit. I should think so, Kit said, his eyes shining. This case made Loth think of the Nameless One, and how he had torn through the earth until he found his way into the world above. His mother had often told him the story when he was a child, using different voices to frighten him and make him laugh. He took another step. The ground underfoot gave a hollow rumble like the belly of a giant. Loth stopped dead, clutching the torch. Its flame guttered as another cold wind feathered through the tunnel. Is it a quake? Kit murmured. When Loth did not reply, his voice grew tense. Loth, is it a quake? Hush, I don't know. Another rumble came, louder this time, and the earth seemed to tilt. Loth lost his footing. No sooner had he caught himself than a terrific shuddering began. First soft, like a shiver of fear, then more and more violent, until his teeth rattled in their sockets. It's a quake, he shouted. Run! Kit, run, man, run! The iron box pounded against his back. They barreled through the darkness, desperately searching for any glint of daylight ahead. It was as if the very mantle of the earth was convulsing. Loth! Kit, his voice shot through with terror. The torch! My torch is out! Loth turned on his heel, winded, and thrust out his torch. His friend had fallen far behind. Kit! He ran back. On your feet, man! Hurry! Follow my voice! A creak, like weak ice underfoot. Small rocks, like gravel, peppering his back. He threw his hands over his head as the roof of the tunnel came pouring down. For a long time, he expected to die. The night of courage fled from him, and he whimpered like a child. The darkness blinded him. Rock smashed, glass shattered and ran. He coughed on foul-tasting dust. And then, just like that, it stopped. Kit! Loth bellowed. Kit! Panting, he reached for his torch, still lit miraculously, and swung it towards the place he had heard Kit calling out to him. Rock and volcanic glass filled the tunnel. Kitson! He could not be dead. He must not be dead. Loth shoved at the wall of debris with all his might, threw his shoulder against it time and again, struck at it with the ice staff and pounded his fist bloody. When at last it gave way, He reached into the rubble and hauled at the rocks with his bare hands, and the air down here was like half-set honey, sticky in his throat. His fingers closed around the limp hand. He shoved more glass aside, his muscles straining with the effort. And there, at last, was Kate. There were the eyes lock-kneed, their laughter gone. The mouth, so quick to smile, that would never smile again.
Damn.
There was the tablet about his neck, pinned to the one he had given Locke at their last feast of fellowship. The rest of him was out of sight. All Locke could see was the blood that seeped between the rocks. A desperate sob heaved out of him. His cheeks were wet with sweat and tears. His knuckles bled, and his mouth tasted of iron. "Forgive me," he said thickly. "Forgive me, Single." Chapter 22. West. The marriage of Sabran IX and Albrecht II took place this summer term to autumn. It was customary for the vows to be taken at midnight during the new moon, for it was in the darkest hours that companionship was needed most. And a dark hour it was. Never in Berethnet history had a marriage come so soon after a burial. The great sanctuary of Briar House, like most sanctuaries, was round, modelled on the shields used by the early knights of Innis. After the grief of ages, when its roof had caved in, Rosarian II had ordered red stained glass windows be set into the arches in memory of those whose blood had been spilled.
5 more minutes.
Over the centuries, 3 scoundrel trees had broken through the floor and pleached their branches over the walkway. Their leaves already burned with gold and umber. 600 people had gathered beneath them for the ceremony, including the most virtuous order of Sanctarians. When the Queen of Innis appeared at the south-facing doors, the witnesses fell silent. Her hair was brushed to an ebony gloss, threaded with white flowers. A partlet latticed her necklace. She wore a crown of filigrane gold, inlaid with rubies that caught the light of every candle. The choir began to sing, their voices fluting high and rich. Sabran took one step, then stopped. From her position among the candle-bearers, Iad watched the Queen as she stayed there, rooted to the spot. Roslane, her giver, pressed her arm. "Sab," she whispered. Sabran drew herself up. In the darkness of the sanctuary, few would be able to see the rigid set of her shoulders, or the shiver that might have been put down to the chill. A moment later, she was on her way. Satan Combe observed her approach from where the Duke's spiritual and their family stood. The candlelight revealed the pinch of satisfaction at the corner of his mouth. He had sent Loth to his death for this night. Loth, who should be with Sabran. It was traditional in Innis for the closest friends of the betrothed to lead them into the state of companionship. Nearby, Igraine Crest was impenetrable. Iad supposed this was both a victory and a defeat for her. She wanted an heir, but not by this father. It was also proof that Sabran was no longer the grief-stricken girl who had needed so much guidance in her minority. The Red Prince entered on the other side of the sanctuary. His eldest sister was his giver. He wore a cloak to match his betrothed, lined with crimson silk and ermine, and a doublet with gold fastenings. Like Sabran, he wore gloves with ostensive cuffs, the better to draw the eye during the ceremony. A circlet of gilded silver declared his royalty. Sabran walked with poise towards him. Her wedding gown was something to behold. Deep crimson, like cherry wine, and a black forepart, rich with goldwork and pearls. Her ladies, Iad included, were her inverse, their black gowns set off by red stomachers. The marriage party met on the boss of the sanctuary, beneath the gilded baldachin that stood on ornate columns. The witnesses formed a circle around it. Now Sabran was lit by the candles on the boss, close enough to Lievelyn for him to see her clearly. He swallowed. Sabran took Roslane by the hand, while Lievelyn locked fingers with his eldest sister, and the 4 of them knelt on hazzards. Everyone else fanned away. As she snuffed her candle, Iad spied Chazar in the crowd. The Arch-Centurion of Innis was spindle-fingered, so pale that traceries of blue veins could be seen about his temples. The true sword was figured in silver on the front of his herigort. "Friends," he spoke into the silence, "we meet tonight, in this haven from the world, to bear witness to the union of these two souls in the sacred state of companionship. Like the damsel and the saint, they seek to meet in soul and in flesh for the preservation of virtue. Companionship is a great service, for Innis itself was built on the love between Gallian, a knight of Innisca, and Clearlind, a heretic woman of Lassia. Moments in, and someone had already called their mother a heretic. He had exchanged a brief look with Chessar across the aisle. After clearing his throat, the Arch-Centurion opened his silver-fronted prayer book and read the story of the Knight of Fellowship, who had been the first to join the holy retinue. He had only half listened. Her gaze was fixed to Sabran, who was perfectly still. Evelyn glanced at her. When the story was finished, Roslane and Ermuna, their duties as givers complete, stepped away from the royal couple. Roslane went to stand by her companion, Lord Calidor Stillwater, who drew her close. She never pulled her gaze from Sabran, who in turn watched her friends leave her under the baldachin with an all but stranger. Let us begin. The Arch-Centurion nodded to Evelyn. The High Prince removed the glove from his left hand and held it out. Sabran, the Knight of the House of Berethnet, Queen of Innis, your betrothed extends to you the hand of fellowship. Will you accept and be his faithful companion from this day to the end of days? Evelyn gave Sabran a smile that barely creased his eyes. The shadows made it hard to tell if she was smiling back as she took a love-knot ring from the Arch-Centurion. Friend, she said, I will. She paused, jaw tight, and Iad saw the slight rise of her breast. Albrecht Evelyn, she continued, I take you now as my companion. She slid the ring onto his
freaking
forefinger.
cornbread. It's pissing me off.
Reserved for sovereigns. My friend, my bedfellow, my constant partner in all things. Pause. I swear to love you with my soul, defend you with my sword, and give nobody else my favor. This I vow to you. The Arch-Centurion nodded again. Now it was Sabran who removed her left glove. Albrecht II of the House of Evelyn, High Prince of the Free State of Mentendon, came the exoration. Your betrothed extends to you the hand of fellowship. Will you accept and be her faithful companion from this day to the end of days?
The middle is not done.
Friend, Evelyn said, I will.
Okay.
When he took Sabran's ring from the Arch-Centurion, her hand gave a barely visible quake. This was her last chance to withdraw from the marriage before it was legally binding. Iad glanced towards Roslane, whose lips were moving just a little, as if in encouragement or in prayer. Sabran looked up at Evelyn and, at last, gave him a subtle nod. He took her left hand, as gently as if it were a butterfly, and placed the ring. All day. The key held only by Roslane, but she trusted no one in this court. After a long moment, during which she reflected on whether this was a wise decision, Iad took out the rose she had cut that afternoon and tucked it behind the pillow on the right side of the bed. The pillow embroidered with the Berethnet badge. Let her have sweet dreams tonight, at least. The wardings rang with a footstep he had recognized. A shadow appeared in the doorway, and Roslane Crest surveyed the room, her chin pinched. A thread of hair had escaped her heart-shaped coiffure. She looked around the chamber as if it were unfamiliar to her, and not where she had slept beside her queen on countless occasions. My lady, he had curtsied. Are you well? Yes. Roslane let out a breath through her nose. Her Majesty requests your presence, Iad. This was unexpected. Surely only the ladies of the bedchamber can disrobe her on. As I said, Roslane interrupted, she has asked for you, and you appear to have completed your duties in here. With a last glance at the room, she returned to the corridor, and Iad followed her. A chamber is not permitted to touch the royal person, as you know, but I will overlook it tonight, insofar as is necessary. Of course. The withdrawing chamber, where Sabran was washed and dressed each day, was a square room with an ornate plaster ceiling, the smallest in her royal apartments. Its curtains were shut. Sabran stood barefoot beside the fire, gazing into the flames as she took off her earrings. Her gown had doubtless been locked away in the privy wardrobe, leaving her in her shift. Catrian was removing the padded roll from about her waist. Iad went to the queen and moved her hair aside to reach her nape, where her carcanet was clasped. Iad, Sabran said, did you enjoy the ceremony? Yes, your majesty, you looked magnificent. Do I not still? She asked it lightly, but Iad heard the trace of doubt in her voice. You are always beautiful, madame. Iad worked the hook free and slipped the jewels from about her throat. But in my eyes, never more so than you are now. Sabran looked at her. Do you suppose, she said, that Prince Albrecht will find me so? His Royal Highness is mad or a fool if he does not. Their gazes pulled apart when Rosalind returned to the chamber. She approached Sabran and set about unlacing her corset. Iad, she said, the nightgown? Yes, my lady. While Iad found a pan to warm the garment, Sabran raised her arms, allowing Rosalind to slip her shift over her head. The two ladies of the chamber took their queen to the wash basin, where they cleaned her from head to toe. As she smoothed the nightgown, Iad stole a glance. Divested of her regalia, Sabran Berethnet did not look like the scion of any saint, false or true. She was mortal, still imposing, still graceful, but softer somehow. Her body was a sandglass, round hips, a small waist and full breasts, the nipples wetted. Long legs, strong from riding. When she saw the dusk between them, a chill flickered through Iad. She wrenched her attention back to her task. The Inish was squeamish about nakedness. She had not seen a disrobed body that was not her own in years. Ros, Sabran said, will it hurt? Rosalind patted her skin dry with clean linen. It can a little, at first, she said, but not for long. And not if His Royal Highness is attentive. Sabran stared into the room without seeming to see it. She turned her love-knot ring. What if I cannot conceive? In the silence that followed that question, a mouse could not have breathed unheard. Sabran, Catrian said gently, taking her arm. Of course you will. Iad kept quiet. This seemed like a conversation only for the intimates, but no one had ordered her to leave. My grandmother could not for many years, Sabran murmured. High Westerns are on the wing. Iscarlin has betrayed me. If Fidel and Segoso invade Innis and I have no heir, you will have an heir. Queen Gillian gave birth to a beautiful daughter, your lady mother, and soon enough you will be a mother too. Rosalind rested her chin on Sabran's shoulder. After it is done, lie still for a time and sleep on your back. Sabran leaned into her.
Not quite.
I wish Locke had been here, she said. He was to be my giver. I promised him. Now the cloud was gone. The bruise-like marks under her eyes had never looked starker. Now he is lost, somewhere in Cascara, and I am powerless to reach him. Loth will be all right. I have faith that he will come home soon. Rosalind held her closer. And when he does, he will bring news of your Lord Father. Another missing face. Loth and Father and Bella too. Loyal Bella, who served 3 queens. Sabran closed her eyes. It bodes ill that she died so near to this day, in the bed where Sabran, Rosalind said, this is your wedding night. You must not have these dark thoughts, or they will taint the seed. Iad emptied the pan back into the hearth. She wondered if the Inish knew anything useful about childing, or if their physicians dealt in naught but guesswork. As the hour approached, the queen grew quiet. Rosalind whispered guidance in her ear, and Catrian combed every petal from her hair. They dressed her in the nightgown and a fur-lined rail. Catrian lifted her hair from under the collar. Iad, Sabran said as they faced the door, is this how it is done in the Ursir? A furrow had appeared in her brow, the same furrow that had been there when she had described her nightmare. Iad found herself wanting to smooth it. Something like this, madam, she said. Somewhere outside, a firework whistled skyward. The celebrations were beginning in the city. They led Sabran from the withdrawing chamber. She was shivering, but she kept her head up. A queen could not show fear. When the doors of the royal bedchamber came into sight, Rosalind and Catrian pressed closer to their sovereign. Sir Tharian Lindley and 2 of his knights of the body, who had been standing guard, now knelt before her. "Your Majesty," Lindley said, "for the sake of courtesy, I cannot guard your chamber on this, your wedding night. I entrust your protection to your companion and your ladies of the bedchamber." Sir Bran laid a hand on his head. "Good, Sir Tharian," she said. "The knight of courtesy smiles on you." He stood, and he and his knights bowed to her. As they left, Catrian took the key from Roslane and opened the doors. At the foot of the bed, the arch-sanctarian stood with a prayer book in hand, murmuring. Albrecht Llewellyn waited with his grooms of the inner chamber. His nightshirt, edged with blackwork, fell open to show his collarbones. "Your Majesty," he said. In the firelight, his eyes were inkwells. Sir Bran gave just the barest dip of her head. "Your Royal Highness." The arch-sanctarian made the sign of his sword. "The saint blesses this bed. Let it bear the fruit of its unending vine." He closed his prayer book. "And now it is time for friends to take their leave, so that these new friends might come to know each other. Saint, give us all good night, for he watches us in darkness." "He watches us in darkness," came the echo. Iad didn't say it with the others. The ladies and the grooms all curtsied. As Roslane straightened, Sir Bran whispered, "Ros." Roslane looked her in the eye. Out of sight of the men, she grasped Sir Bran so tightly by the hand that both their fingers blanched. Catrian led Roslane out. As Iad followed them back through the door, she looked back at the Queen, and their gazes touched. For the first time, she saw Sir Bran Berethnet for who she was beneath the mask, a young and fragile woman who carried 1,000-year legacy on her shoulders. A queen whose power was absolute only so long as she could produce a daughter. The fool in Iad wanted to take her by the hand and get her away from this room, but that fool was too much of a coward to act. She left Sir Bran alone, like all the others had. Margaret and Lenora were waiting, the 5 of them gathered in the dark. "Did she seem all right?" Margaret asked softly. Roslane ran her hands down the front of her gown. "I don't know." She paced back. "For the first time in my life, I cannot tell." "It is natural for her to be nervous," Catrian spoke in a whisper. "How did you feel with Cal?" "That was different. Cal and I were betrothed as children. He was not a stranger," Roslane said, "and the fate of nations did not rest upon the fruit of our union." They kept their vigil, ears pricked for any changes in the royal bedchamber. When 1/4 of an hour had passed, Catrian pressed her ear to the doors. "He is talking about Brigstad." "Let them talk," Iad said, keeping her voice low. "They hardly know one another." "But what will we do if the union is not consummated?" "Sir Bran will see it done." Roslane looked into nothing. She knows it is her bounden duty. The waiting continued for some time. Lenora, who had settled on the floor, dozed off against the wall. Finally, Roslane, who had been still as a stone, began to pace again. "What if—" She wrung her fingers. "What if he is a monster?" Catrian stepped towards her. "Ros, you know, my lady mother told me that Sir Bran the Eighth was ill-used by her companion. He drank and whored and said cruel things to her. She never told anyone, not even her ladies-in-waiting. Then one night," she pressed her hand flat to her stomacher, "the despicable knave struck her, cracked her cheekbone and broke her wrist, and he was executed for it." Catrian gathered her close. "Listen now. Nothing is going to happen to Sam. I have seen how Llewellyn is with his sisters. He has the heart of a lambkin." "He might be the very picture of a lambkin," Iad said, "but monsters often have soft faces. They know how to mask themselves." She looked them both in the eye. "We will watch her. We will listen well. Remember why we wear blades as well as jewels." Roslane held her gaze, and slowly she nodded. A moment later, so did Catrian. Iad saw then that they would do anything for Sir Bran. They would take a life or lay down theirs. Anything. At the turn of the hour, something changed in the royal bedchamber. Lenora stirred awake and clapped a hand over her mouth. Iad moved closer to the door. Thick as it was, she could hear enough to understand well what was happening within. When it was over, she nodded to the ladies of the bedchamber. Sabran had done her
Not this one
duty.
got a brown crust on the top.
In the morning, Llewellyn left the royal bedchamber at just past 9 o'clock. Only when the little door had closed behind him could the ladies-in-waiting go to the queen. Sabran lay in bed, sheets gathered over her breasts. She or Llewellyn had opened the curtains, but the sky was overcast, offering scant light. She looked over her shoulder when they entered. Rosalind rushed to her side. "Are you well, Majesty?" "Yes." Sabran sounded tired. "I believe I am, Ros." Rosalind pressed a kiss to her hand. When Sabran rose, Catriona was there at once with a mantle. While Ian stepped towards the bed with Margaret and Lenora, the two ladies of the bed